Hello, everyone, and welcome to the greatest Star Wars Rebels recap show here at Collider Video. I'm David Griffin, your host today, to talk to you about Star Wars Rebels. This is Season 2, Episode 12, Legends of Lasat. But I'm not the only one here representing the great state of New York, specifically Buffalo. I have someone representing New York City right next to me. Say hello.
Hello!
Hello!
Kristian Harloff here, not only from Collider Jedi Council. Here, I'm finally back for Rebels Recap. Hello, David.
Hello. This is a week where our last few weeks we've been getting individual episodes.
Yeah.
Got a little bit of Sabine, got an episode.
Filoni said that would be happening.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of, I don't want to call them one-offs because they are, they have to do with the whole story. But this week we got Zeb.
Yeah.
We got a Zeb-centric episode. Zeb needed a little bit of love. His people, we thought the last of his people actually aren't. So, in this show, we always talk about our strengths, weaknesses of the episode. But first, I want to start off with strengths. Kristian, what stood out to you about Legends of Lasat?
Well, the first thing is that exactly the fact that Dave Filoni did say at the press conference when this thing was debuting that there was going to be a lot of character development. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to learn about the characters that maybe they didn't even know about themselves, and that's obviously being. We didn't know that he was a general, and general, right?
Captain.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
We didn't know that he was a captain. We didn't know that how much we knew certain things, that he was a badass, but we didn't know to what extent. And I think that what I liked about that is the fact that he's not just, for this episode, it was nice to see him in the forefront, and it gave Steve Blum a little bit more to do as well, too. But my favorite part of the whole entire episode, though, I had a Battlestar Galactica feel this whole entire episode, but especially the music. But there was one scene at the end when Zeb takes his staff and he plunges it into the console, and everyone's first is like, what the hell are you doing? And then the music starts playing, and he's getting himself through, and he's kind of, it's almost like he's using the Force. He wasn't, but it was almost, he was Zen. He was there. And I loved that moment. I got goosebumps, I'm not gonna lie, when that music kicked in and his buddies, both Kanan and Ezra just used the Force, put their hands on him, and kind of helped him, guide him through that field. Because up to that point, I was going, it's okay, I get where we're giving Zeb an episode, but what's the point? The point was for him to kind of come through, and he was able, and he discovered the planet, that it's still there, and this race is still around.
It was their origin. That's where they came from originally, I guess. Yeah. There were people there.
So I thought that, to me, it was nice to see, and it also we know, or at least I think a lot of people know, that Kallus and Zeb are going to be stranded on a planet together this season.
Okay.
And this is just furthering their rivalry. Like, we saw their battle in Season 1, and now Kallus is chasing after him. Thought he was going to destroy, and Zeb won this battle, got himself and his buddies out, saved his race again. So to see where they're going to come to a head, I think is pretty interesting in the way that was set up in this episode.
I love how you get the characters. You get the ancient one. I think her name's like Shava or something.
Margaret.
She's like old lady.
She likes some milk,
and she's wise. And she talks about being the warrior, the child. Yeah. And I love how Zeb acts like the child a lot of times. He's like, oh, but I wanted to be the warrior,
the fool, the child.
Yeah, all the
roles.
Like
that angle.
The roles kept changing. I loved her explanation of explaining how at one point in our lives we play all three roles. We're all going to be the warrior, we're all going to be the child, and we're all going to be the fool. And what makes a complete person is encompassing all of those ideals. Very Jedi-like, in a way.
It's true. I jumped back right to college when she said the fool part.
Yeah, I was like, I got that out of the way. You know, hopefully I can be maybe a warrior someday. I don't know. But very cool scene. Also, I love Hando. Hondo's hilarious. I like at the beginning when he called Ezra. He said, "Hey, the Imperials are coming. They're coming toward you." He's like, "How close are they?" A laser whisked by his head, and he's like, "Pretty close."
Yeah, that and
Hondo's great.
Yeah, and the fact that when he's just like, what about the reward? He's like, "You never were gonna get it." He's like, nice, best student I ever had. Like that kind of stuff. And what is also shown, he's evolved as a character because he was. Even though he was funny in the same way in the Clone Wars, he was pretty rotten and aggressive too. Like at this point, he's just kind of comic relief.
We found out that Hondo reached out to Ezra.
Yeah,
because I think Kanan accused him. He's like, "Oh, you got in touch with Hondo." He's like, "No, actually, he reached out to me, claiming that." He's like, "Oh, of course, you Jedi would come along and rescue these stranded Lasat people." So I mean, that was cool. I guess. Two, I love we talk about the Force abilities, because the Force, we know there's a lot of Force sensitive people in the Star Wars universe. They don't all identify it as the Force, though. For her, she gave it a different name. She had a different way of describing it and used it in a different way, but it still is the Force. And it's cool to see other, I guess, aliens, other people using the Force in a different way. I think that's pretty unique too.
It was, and it was the little chant that they were doing together, and the fact that Ezra. I mean, because Ezra, even in the little bit that he was in this episode, you see how he's kind of at peace. You know, and he, like there are times like when it's not focused on him that it's like the dark side isn't even close to him. But when the episodes are focused on Ezra, that's when we start to see that dark side. But this is all about Zeb. And I think as far as if we were talking about things that we didn't necessarily enjoy or like, is that I think that I started to get tired with the angle that I'm like, okay, because it was predictable. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. They set it up to where it was like, okay, here he is. He sees his race, and he wants him to fight, but he still feels kind of guilty. But eventually, he's going to come back around. She's going to teach him something, and it's exactly what happened. That's fine because at least the end was executed well. I'm okay with predictability as long as it's executed well, and this one was. But leading up to that, it was starting to get a little bit of a strain for me because I was just like, okay, do I care that much? I mean, and this chant was a bit silly with the la la la, whatever they were saying. But it did feel a little bit like a throwaway at times. But what I've also found with Rebels is that every time you think an episode is a throwaway, it tends to have some relevance down the line with future episodes.
I felt the same way until they got to that anomaly in space.
Yeah,
and the classical music started going, and like the strings, the instruments were playing. I was into it. I was into it. I was like, wow, I was glued the whole time until going to my disappointment is we didn't get to see the planet. I wanted to see their home. We didn't get to see it. I mean, I'm sure there's a budget thing. They'd have to create the planet. They have to create the people to inhabit the planet. So it's a budget thing. But hopefully, I think, Kristian, we were talking about this earlier, that I hope they get to come back to that at some point.
You know what I think it sets up? I think that this set up that Zeb is going to be the first one to go.
Oh, no.
I do think this because I think that out of all the stories, Sabine and Hera and Ezra and Kanan, and everyone whose stories, because we're going to get a little bit more into Kanan too, I'm sure as the season goes on, but out of all these stories, everyone seems like they have a little bit more to tell, but I feel like I got a lot out of Zeb, but this, like, how much more is there really to tell of his story? Right. I think that what he's going to do is he's going to serve that purpose as like the best friend, who, whether he sacrifices himself for Kanan or whether he helps out Ezra in the long run. I feel that that Zeb will be the first one to go.
Oh, poor Zeb. But I do hear it makes sense because, like I said, a lot of people's journey is not complete yet. Zeb, he found his people are okay. Yeah. They're good. I mean, but he does have a mission. He said that he's going to, if he finds more of his people, he knows he's going to take them home, but maybe he won't get that chance. Kristian, I wanted to pick your brain about last week a little bit. Because I saw in the comment section, a lot of you were commenting, we read the comments, we care about what you have to say. You were commenting about how they wished, I think, Kristian, you and Tiffany were there because of the Fen Rao character that was introduced. Yeah. And because, granted, we recorded on a Tuesday, so the new issue in Kanan had not come out yet, but Kanan issue number 10, I believe Fen Rao was introduced in there, so I wanted to get your take on Fen Rao because John and I both loved him. I think he's going to be a character who's going to show up again. He's an interesting character. I really liked him a lot.
Loved him. And we talked about it actually in Collider Jedi Council the next day because of that reason alone, because Tiffany and I wanted to talk about it because we had a chance to watch that episode at Sundance together, and the Kanan comic had not come out yet. So I had watched the episode, then I read the comic and went, oh man, I went back and watched the episode again because that to me was one of the most effective ways that Lucasfilm and the story group has included new canon together to mesh together with the comic book and the television series, and I think
in the same week.
In the same week, it was strategic, and it also shows that Greg Weisman, who wrote the Kanan comic, was also executive producer on Rebels' first season, and so he obviously and when we interviewed him on Jedi Council, he said the same thing, that he has had a lot of stories where he knows Kanan's backstory very much so, and when we talked to Freddie Prinze, he said the same thing, is that Greg Weisman knew so much that he'd always talk to Greg about Kanan's backstory and learning more, and you got to see that, and it really played well in that episode, and I loved that character because it, to me, represented the Mandalorians the best out of anything that I've seen since Knights of the Republic. Yeah. And I think that the Mandalorians, well, the Clone Wars represented them pretty well, and I think that was exactly what I wanted to see. That's exactly like it was. No, we have a deal with the Empire right now. Sorry, that deal's better. We're going to blow you up. And then, well...
very matter of fact.
Yes, very matter of fact. And the fact that the strategy of we can't. I know that the Empire knows that I'm caught. They're going to bomb my people. They're going to bomb me. So don't say anything. Like, he's a good leader. He's a smart leader, and I think that character will absolutely show up more. And it'll be nice to see him fighting on the side of the rebels, because I think that's where his destiny lies.
Destiny lies. Yeah, I don't think, at least that was Kevin McKidd voicing him.
Was it?
The voice, yeah. I think a lot of people were saying Kevin McKidd from HBO's Rome series, which is awesome.
That's right. That's absolutely it.
Also,
right.
too, the last issue of Kanan, we got one more issue, I believe. I think it said series concludes at the end of the issue.
Oh, there's only one more?
Yeah, no, it's either 11 or 12. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's either 11 or 12. I think we have one more coming out, and that's going to conclude. It's been a good series, though, so I'm sad to see that go.
I'm bummed that series is ending. That was one of my favorite series in the new comics, the new canon for the comic books. I think that it, especially now that it ties into Rebels so well. So, yeah, I'm really bummed that the Kanan comic book is coming to an end.
Kristian, I want to ask you one more question, too. Now, we always do our predictions. Now that we've gotten these kind of one-offs out of the way, which have been good episodes. Yeah. Sabine's episode was great. I enjoyed Zeb's this week. Do you think now we're going to get into what we were seeing in the trailers? Because we don't have that much left. I mean, there's still episodes to go, but we're getting, this is episode 12, not counting Siege of Lothal. So, do you think we're going to get to that stuff now with Ezra and the I think that's going to be like Old Master. Yeah.
I don't
Holocrons.
Not yet, because I do think that we're going to, I think we're getting Cham Sudala, who's Hera's dad, and I'm curious if they're going to play into Lords of the Sith at all, because I don't think with Cham Sudala, if you're not familiar,
correct me if I'm wrong, this is post Lords of the Sith,
or no?
It's post Lords of the Sith. Yeah, post.
Lords of the Sith is about 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. Okay. So this is like what, 10 years later, 15 years later, something along those lines. So I want to see, because the thing is, yes, Cham Sudala started a rebellion. He was probably the first person to start a rebellion against the Empire, but that doesn't mean that he's on the same side, fighting the same fight that, say, his daughter is and the other ones. So I don't think you should expect that Cham Sudala is just going to show up and join the rebels. Yeah, he's been fighting his own rebellion for a long time. At least that's what I hope, because reading Lords of the Sith and seeing the fight that this dude's been fighting against the Empire for so long would be very interesting to see. So I think that's going to happen first, and I think that'll also play in. That's what I was talking about before, where there's more of Hera's story to tell. And I still think that then we're going to start to get into a little bit more, and then finally, I think within the next 3 or 4 episodes, we'll start getting into that, what it looked like, Old Republic, Sith, Guardians, all that type of stuff. They're holding that stuff.
Because everybody keeps thinking that could be a vision or a dream sequence of some kind, with Yoda, obviously, or any of those scenes, like with the guys with the yellow lightsabers, the Guardians. That's going to be cool. I'm excited to see that. I can't wait to see that.
How about the big rumor for Rebels this week?
What is it?
Did you hear about the big rumor?
No, I didn't hear the big rumor. What's the big rumor?
Big rumor, and this could be a potential spoiler.
Spoiler alert.
So I'm giving you a warning right now. The potential spoilers for season 3.
Oh.
There is a report from Making Star Wars, which is accurate about 92% of the time, says that in season 3, Admiral Thrawn is going to show up.
Wow. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Also, dude, how long do you think they can go with Rebels? I was always curious about this, because Leia's 15, so when Star Wars New Hope, she's 18, right? 18, 19?
I think you should look between 4 and 5 seasons.
Right, until they get up to New Hope and then cut it loose. Hopefully get another series. But, that was what we thought of this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels, Legends of Lasat. Awesome episode, Zeb-centric episode. Let us know what you thought in the comment section below. You can find all of our videos right here on Collider Video, especially all of our recap shows. Kristian, you're part of Jedi Council, man. You're talking about Rebels twice a week.
I know, it's true. So you can follow me at Kristian Harloff on both Twitter and Instagram, and like David mentioned, every Thursday, Collider Jedi Council. If you'd like to get your questions on Collider Jedi Council, just hashtag Collider Jedi Council, and we'll pick them out and we'll read them.
And I was your host this week, David Griffin. You can find me a few places. I was on Supergirl Recap Show yesterday, 2 days ago. This is coming out Monday. On Monday, it was a lot of fun. I'm going to be on Flash Recap Show as well on Wednesday here at Collider Video. And again, we'll be back here next week with some more Star Wars Rebels recap.
All right. Peace out, Mother Fs.